Jean-Baptiste Girard once said, "By words we learn thoughts, and by thoughts we learn life." Once used for recreation and casual consumption, television has become one of the most popular platforms for writers to bring attention to important cultural and societal issues. One such show caught my attention this past winter break. As I watched the 5th episode of the 5th season of the originals entitled "Don't It Just Break Your Heart," I had an epiphany. The societal implications of the symbols present in this episode threw themselves at me. As such, today we'll explain my rhetorical analysis of this episode and how Black creators use diction and symbolism to represent the prevalence of racism in modern America, as well as a call to action to empower their audience to speak out against the actions of racists. In order to explore this thesis, I will first give a description of my artifact by discussing the creators and their importance, the characters relevant to this analysis, provide a brief summary of a few key events leading up to this episode as well as the episode itself, then give a brief description of my methodology. After this, I will dive into my analysis of the writer's use of diction, symbolism, and a call to action within the episode. Then I will discuss the implications and real-life applications of the themes present in this episode. First, a description of the artifact and methodology. The creator of the series The Originals is a white woman named Julie Plec. Now, I mention her race because this episode has some provocative representations of racism. So in order to create an authentic narrative, and according to the episode's undated IMDb page, Plec brought in Bianca Sams, a Black woman, to write the story for this episode. Now on to the characters and their relationships. First, we have Klaus and Elijah, who are half-brothers. Klaus is half werewolf and half vampire, making him what is known as a hybrid, and Elijah is a vampire. Haley was Klaus's lover for a short period, during which she became pregnant with Hope, who is now a mixture of supernatural species. The birth of Hope resulted in Haley also becoming a hybrid. Josh was kidnapped and turned into a vampire against his will, but now holds a position of leadership within the vampire community. Lastly, we have August Mueller and Greta Sienna, who were involved romantically back in the 1930s. For a quick summary of the episode. Haley has been kidnapped, and after invading a vampire hideout, Klaus discovers that Greta took her. After taking her hostage, Greta reveals that their friend, August Mueller, influenced her decision. A flashback to Rostock, Germany in the 1930s shows August and Klaus discussing art until Elijah interrupts to discuss a recent increase in werewolf massacres in their immediate area. After discovering August's symbol in a newspaper article about the massacres, Klaus and Elijah confront him. He proudly takes responsibility for his actions, and Elijah threatens him, but releases him without punishment for his actions. Disagreeing with this decision, Klaus goes to Mueller's home and kills him as well as many of his followers, leaving only Greta and her children. Now that I've given you a description of my artifact, I will now define my methodology. For this analysis, I chose an ideological methodology. In her 2018 book, Rhetorical Criticism, Exploration and Practice, Dr. Sonia K. Foss defines ideology as a system of ideas or a pattern of beliefs that determines a group's interpretations of some aspect or aspects of the world. While the group present in this episode does not give name to their ideology, they still follow the same pattern of belief, which stems from their ultimate authority, August Mueller. While this episode depicts Mueller and his followers as Nazis, based on the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary definition of racism, as a belief that race is the predominant determinant of human traits and capacities and that racial differences provide an inherent superiority of a particular race, this analysis will refer to them more generally as racists. Now that I've given you a description of my artifact and methodology, it's time to delve into my analysis. As previously noted, the writers used 3 elements to depict racism in this episode. The first I will discuss is the diction used by the antagonists. While in captivity, Greta refers to Hope's mixed blood as a defect and says it must be corrected. This word choice makes it seem as though she chose the composition of her genetics. Sams uses this to represent how many people of color face discrimination based on something they have no control over. In the same scene, Greta says that Hope and others like her diminish the pure and superior nature of vampires. Based on the television show, the werewolf gene is genetic. Greta considers her kind as superior based on something out of their control. Much like how people of color cannot control the color of their skin, werewolves cannot control their genetics. In a flashback, August refers to the werewolves as mongrels who diminish us and inferior scourges. August believes himself to be among people of similar opinion, and Sam's uses this candid conversation to mirror the conversations racists may have when they feel safe. This brazen language evokes discomfort within the audience, helping them to understand how racial minorities may feel when they experience this sort of behavior. Now that we've discussed the diction used in this episode, it's time to analyze the symbols present therein. The first symbol is August's signature. This symbol is clearly meant to resemble the Nazi swastika, and the creators used the audience's familiarity with this symbol to understand the motivations behind their belief system. However, according to an August 7, 2018 article on the Holocaust Encyclopedia website, the swastika once stood for good fortune and well-being. The creators take this original meaning when Klaus flips this coin when killing August and his followers. When Greta picks up the coin, he spares her and her children, granting them well-being. This coin, however, has a double meaning when Greta leaves it after taking Haley. Having Greta hold onto the coin for decades only to return it after committing a hate crime against hybrids conveys her conviction in her beliefs. Now that I have demonstrated the symbols present in this episode, I want to talk about the call to action. For this, I will display a short clip of the episode in which Klaus begs Elijah to act against his would-be oppressors. Bear with me, my internet is very slow. So we'll see if this works. Okay, sorry that we're back in business. Technical difficulties. Here is the clip. Maybe.
We need you to do something! To take action when people my kind mongrels, not just to talk. Otherwise you're no better than those who turn their backs and allow this to happen.
Okay, let me get back to the PowerPoint. Jesus. Considering that this occurs in the 1930s, we can assume that the writers are referencing those that stood by and turned their backs as the Nazis rounded up the Jewish people and massacred them. Klaus begs his brother to act out against August rather than stand by and allow his people to be slaughtered, much in the way a person of color may beg a white person to act against racists. Now that I have discussed my analysis, I want to go over the real-life implications of this episode. The fact that Bianca Sams presents a POC narrative through a white lens allows the racial majority to fully comprehend the plight of the minority. It can even encourage them to act against racists. Sam's call to action pleads with her audience to speak against racists. Recall the quote I began this speech with. By words we learn thoughts, and by thoughts we learn life. Bianca Sams has given us the words. It is now our responsibility to turn them into thoughts and then apply them to our life. Thank you.